Okay, this is the video lab for Friday, the 3rd of April. So we're going to finish lab 23 today. So here's your book here, and this is the procedure that you're going to fill out. Under the results, I want you to all use the organism Serratia marcescens. So what you're going to do is, based on this video, you're going to sketch with Serratia, the culture pattern that you got with Serratia marcescens. Okay, so I'm going to show that to you right now. First of all, though, you should now remember what we use to cover the plate. These are the sunglasses, so cool, that we use to cover the plate to obstruct the UV light. And so you'll need to put that in your results, the sunglasses. Okay. And then for Serratia marcescens, we cultured A in the dark. Okay, you can see that. Try to get rid of this glare here a little bit. Well, there's still some glare, but you can see the cultivation pattern in the dark. Okay, you can see that it is a reddish color. Okay, so that's the first organism, and this is A. And you can see that where the glasses block the UV light, it grows just fine. But outside the UV light, it barely grows. There's one colony, I don't know if you can see it directly. There's one colony that's right about there. Okay, very small colony that you can see. And so I would rate the growth outside of the control area as a 0. And inside the control area, the highest level of growth that you can rate is a 4. Okay, and so this is what you would have on your next page of your laboratory notebook. You actually record your results for 4 different cultures. Your laboratory textbook shows that you also did a 5th culture of Saccharomyces cerevisiae. We did not do that. So today you're going to record the results for Bacillus subtilis, Micrococcus luteus, Serratia marcescens, and Staphylococcus epidermidis. So I'm starting with Serratia marcescens because this is the culture I want you to draw. Okay, so there's A. And then there's B, which we cultivated in the light. Okay. So after we zapped these with UV light, then I cultivated them on the windowsill so they could be have light associated with them. And you can see there wasn't a whole lot of evidences of light repair. There's one colony right up here. Okay, I don't know if you can see that very well. But one colony right there. And so I would rate it inside the control area as a 4 and outside the control area as a 0. And then finally, here's the Petri dish. And I think I don't like the way this is working. I'm going to put a piece of I hold this up, put it in front of a piece of a paper. Actually, that's worse, isn't it? Okay. But you can see there are some colonies growing. There's some colonies growing there. This was plate C, which was cultured, was treated with UV light for 60 seconds. And I would rate this growth actually a 1. You do see some colonies that survive just fine. They are Serratia. You can't really tell it from the video, but I can look at it and they are red pigmented. So I would rate that growth as a 1. Okay, so you're rating growth inside the covered control, and then for A, B, and C, outside of the control area. Okay, so Serratia marcescens, I got covered control was 4, A was 0, B was 0, and C was 1. Next, I'm sorry I'm going out of order. I'll do. Next, we have Bacillus subtilis, which in the covered control grew great, but outside of the covered area, this is plate A, so it was treated with UV light for 30 seconds, and you got no growth, so the growth was 0 outside the covered area and 4 inside the covered area. Here's B. It was cultivated in the light after 60 seconds, and you can see that in the covered control, it did grow, but outside the covered area, there was no growth or 0. Here's plate C. It was cultivated in the dark after 60 seconds of UV light, and there's absolutely no growth on C. So that's a 0. Was Micrococcus luteus. Micrococcus luteus is kind of interesting because it did grow outside the covered area. Okay, so under the covered control, this is plate A. You did get a 4 here, okay, but there is some wispy growth. There is some growth. I would call that a 1 or a 2 outside of the covered control for Micrococcus luteus. Okay, so it did grow, even though it was subjected to UV light, and then it was cultivated in the dark, it did grow. It grew even more. So you see the covered control, there's growth, but outside the covered control, you can see bands, especially right up here and around here. So I would rate the growth outside of the covered control as a 2, a 1 or a 2. You can use 1 if you want, or you can use 2 if you want. And finally, when we subjected it to 60 seconds of UV light, this is plate C, then we got no growth whatsoever. Okay, there looks like there's a little kind of a small imperfection in the slide there, or in the Petri, but that's not growth. Okay, so for plate C, for Micrococcus luteus, then we got no growth, or 0. Finally, for Staphylococcus epidermidis, here's plate A. Cover control is 4. Growth outside the covering control is 0. There's plate B. Covered control is 4, and outside of the covered control is 0. C. And there's no growth on plate C. Okay, so that gives you enough information that you can fill out the tables for lab 4, or I'm sorry, for lab 23. So you should be able to fill out the table. You should be able to do the drawing for Serratia marcescens on page 191. Fill out the table on page 192 at the top. And then I think what I'll do is next week, this is due on Friday, April 10th. And so next week, I'll do critical thinking and clinical application for you. For this lab, I'll do it as a part of one of the lecture videos, or maybe the inoculations on Wednesday of next week. And so you will get critical thinking and clinical applications done as well. I'm not going to do it right now because this video is getting overly long and taxing my poor little laptop computer. And but this concludes lab 23. So you've got enough information. You'll get critical thinking, clinical applications next week. And it is due on Friday, April 10th. Have a great weekend.